the Lost Ark were to give you a body pillow, which class would I pick? Paladin. Class is back in session, my friends. And so now we need to discuss the concept of rest. Okay, so the rest bar, it looks like this. And every day you have two types of things. You have three types of things, okay? You have Guardian Raids, which are 2 out of 2. You have Chaos Dungeons, which you will have 100 out of 50. And then you have your Eponas, which you do three of every day. So you have two Guardian Raids, 2 Chaos Dungeons, and 3 Eponas. And each of these have their own rest gauge. Each of these are individual, right? And they each have their own individual rest gauge. If I look at this is 20 out of 100. If I look at this is 0 out of 100. They all have their own rest gauge. And what the rest gauge basically says is, if I have one full bar of this full, then whenever I do any of these tasks while one bar is full, it will consume that bar and give me double loot. Okay? So how does this feel? Whenever you don't do 2 of any of these actions, it fills up 1 bar. If you don't do 1 of one of these actions, like you do 1 Guardian Raid, right? Let's say you do 1 Guardian Raid and then you don't do the other one for some reason. Then in that case, I'll color code this. We'll take green. It will only fill up 50. I mean, it's green in game, right? I'm pretty sure it's green in game. Yeah, it's green in game. It will only fill up 50. And it won't be usable. This bar is only usable when it fills up all the way. And when it fills up all the way, it consumes it automatically on the next run, on a successful run of it. 50%, yes. So I only do 1 Guardian run, and then I leave 1 Guardian run undone. And then it fills up half the bar. This bar does nothing for me. So until further notice, the 50% out of the 100% of this bar is nothing. So let's say the next day, right? I do the same thing again. I do 1 Guardian Raid, and then I leave the other one undone. All right. So now we've gone through 2 days, and in 2 days, we did 1 run on the first day, so we got 1 run of loot on the first day. And then we rested. Okay. Technically, if we had done all of our runs up until this point, we would have gotten 2 runs of loot thus far. So this is me. I didn't do one of my runs. I got 1 soul of loot. This is me. I did all of my runs and I got 2 souls of loot from Guardian Raids. This is for people, yes, who don't do dailies every day. Okay? So in this case, up here, we're going to use the rest bar. On the next day, I only do 1 Guardian Raid run. And now this is full. And in this situation where I do everything, I do 2 again. Okay? So now, on day 1 and day 2, in scenario 1, I've done 2 runs over 2 days. And in scenario 2, I've done 4 runs over 2 days. Now day 3 comes along, and in this situation, let's say I do both of my Guardian Raids on this day. Okay? And the first Guardian Raid run goes successful, and this bar automatically depletes. And it gives me double the loot. So the first run gives 1, 2, and then I do my 3rd run normally, and then it's 3. And then in scenario 2, I just do my 2 runs normally. So we were behind by 1 run before, by 2 runs before, and now we're behind by 1 run. What does this basically mean? It means that you don't have to do your dailies every day and you'll get some back. But if you don't do your dailies every day and you use the rest system, you will technically lose a little bit of stuff. And so one of the most common practices that well, a fairly common practice that some people will do is they will skip a day, one day altogether. So they had 2 Guardian raids, they didn't do either of them, and then it fills up both the bars. Okay. And in scenario 2, the person did both their runs, and then they skip the second day and it fills the bar again. Scenario 2, the person does both their runs again. So now person 1 has done 0 runs and has gotten 0 loot over 2 days, and person 2 has gotten 4 souls of loot. And we get to the 3rd day. And on the 3rd day, person 1 does both their runs, and each of the runs depletes 1 full bar. And they get 4 souls of loot in those 2 runs, while person 2 does their 2 runs normally. So you can see that in this scenario, the person who did their stuff every day got about 50% more loot than the person who did stuff every 3rd day. Every 3rd day. So, you know, at that point, you kind of have to make the decision for yourself based on how much time you have to play or how many alts you're playing. 130 goes 50%. This is 6 is 50% more than 4. You think you got me? You think you got me, but you did not get me on that one, Lindo. So what's the best scenario? I think it greatly depends on how much you value your time. It really depends on how much you value your time, because especially certain contents on alts, they don't yield you a 100% return on your efforts, is the best way to put it. Because Chaos Dungeons, as you know, they reward these stones as well as leap stones. But the problem with Chaos Dungeon leap stones is they're bound to the character that you loot them on. These stones, the Destruction and the Guardian stones, are not bound, so they can be moved between your characters, but these are not. And so you're kind of stuck with these on whatever character you loot them on. It does allow you to upgrade your alts, yes. But like, for example, if you're trying to make money off of them, or you're really trying to make a push on your main, depending on what your needs are, you can't utilize these stones for those purposes. On the other hand, Guardian Raids also rewards these kinds of stones, and the difference is these leap stones, they are tradable, and so technically Guardian Raids are more important to do than Chaos Dungeons for that purpose. However, that being said, Chaos Dungeons also have auxiliary benefits to doing them, such as the gear for tripods, as well as the tickets to Boss Rush and Cube. So, and also fragments as well. You don't get fragments from doing Guardian Raids. So it largely depends on what your needs are, on what you decide to do every day. Sometimes I skip out on my Chaos Dungeons, sometimes I do not. What about opponent dailies? How do they compare with Guardian Raids and Chaos Dungeons? Excellent question. So you know that principally this is the thing. By the way, when I said 100 out of 50, the reason I said 150 is that's the official numbers that they use here. It uses 50 energy of resonance in order to enter a Chaos Dungeon, and you're given 100 every day. So that's why the number is like kind of weird. I don't know why they use this number. It seems extremely arbitrary to me. Are weeklies character bound or account bound? Character. They're per character. I still don't understand what your alts give your main. Is it just gold? Materials and gold. Because each character, each alt, like let's take this bard for example, right? My bard, she has her own weekly lockout for Argos, for example, right? And if she does a phase 3 of Argos, she gets me 3,300 gold, because that's the drop from Argos. It's just a raw 3,300 gold. And gold is a finite resource. And so, you know, with each alt being able to run raids and get their own materials and get their own gold, and gold being an account-wide currency, alts are rather beneficial. Now, as far as opponents go, as I wrote here, you have 3 opponents that you can do every day. And the principle of Epona is basically the same. If I don't do any of my Eponas and I leave all 3 undone, then it'll fill up 1.5 bars. Each undone opponent will do 10. Each of these bars is 20. So this is 20, this is 20, this is 20, this is 20, and this is 20. And so every undone task will always fill up 10. And so if you don't do any opponents on a given day, let's say you don't do any opponents two days in a row, right? Then you fill up a total of 60 in that time, because 6 times 10 equals 60. We do math here. And then on the third day, you do all 3 of your opponents. Each opponent you do will consume 1 bar and give you double the opponent reward. Do I get gold from those 20? No, none of these activities actually award raw gold. The only things that award raw gold are Abyss raids, Abyss dungeons, and Daily Adventure Island, and some other miscellaneous things. So that's why you want to make all your alt characters at the start. It's actually quite preferable if you do that, because funny enough, if you make your alt characters at the start, many of them will actually start accumulating rest on certain activities, like their Una's task, from level 1. So let's say you make an alt character at level 1, and then you take like you just don't have any time, and you level up that character to 50 like a few weeks later. It accumulated rest in that time, so like day 1 of you reaching 50 on that character, if you like took 5 or more days to do that, it'll be just full rest on everything, and its first like couple days of doing dailies will have double loot on them. Do a basic explanation of what those striker class mechanic circles do? Sure. As a quick rundown, the identity gauge of Striker is the same exact identity gauge as that of War Dancer. Because they're male and female counterpart of the same class, their identity itself systematically is the same. And so the Striker class uses up certain... his skills use orbs. You can see that if you look at the top of the tooltip, you see an 11 and then you see a 2. Well, the 2 is how many orbs it uses, how many elemental orbs it uses in the center. And this also uses 2. So the 2 skills that I have both use 2 each. So whenever I want to use these skills, I need at least 2 orbs to consume to use these skills, which are my main DPS skills. However, I also have a class Engraving, and this class Engraving makes it so that it will consume all orbs, and for every orb that it consumes when using one of those types of skills that consumes orbs, it increases the skill's damage by 35%. So if I have all 4 orbs, using either of those skills will use up all 4 and increase the damage of the skill by 140%. So the entire idea of this class is to build up your specialization really, really high so that you gain a lot of elemental gauge in the center. And you basically just use your main burst skills when you have 4 orbs. And then ideally when you have your crit buff available as well for 18% more crit chance. 2 skills that use orbs then, because I can build up 4 orbs to burn through each of those skills before the other one comes off of cooldown. What I get that's worth to get if I pay to win in this game, I mean, the only thing that you can like truly pay to win in this game really is like the royal crystal to gold conversion, and even then I would strongly recommend that you wait to do that, because initially the prices for whaling are going to be so stupendously high that every alt will generate a crazy amount of money's worth of resources, and you'll just end up whaling and it'll depreciate in value crazy fast. As in, whatever you spent, someone will be able to accomplish the same and much less later on. If you spend a lot of the early game focusing on buying blue crystals from whale players that are nonsensically trying to use the gold exchange, you can get a ton of blue crystals, which is the sub cash cop currency, for a disgustingly low price early on with your gold. And that would like set you for that would set you for a long time without having to worry about blue crystals. 415 if you enchant the Mystic Legendary set to plus 15. That's correct. That's exactly how it works. Mystic plus 15 ends at 415 and prepares you for Rehendel. That's why plus 15 is always the goal. You never need to go beyond plus 15, technically. Is the class blade good in PvE top 5? Not at all.